Okay, in year 10, you will be studying 15 poems that you have to remember at least a few quotations and the core themes and events of them. Okay, there are 15 poems. I'm not going to read them out to you, but they are associated with the power and conflict anthology. So there's going to be an involvement of power and conflict. So there's loads of war ones. There's some that are associated with culture, and there's some associated with identity, and there's some associated with nature. So there are 15 poems that you guys need to know in detail, and then a couple of quotations as well. So these lessons over the next 3 months in your literature lessons are going to be looking at those poems. I'll teach you how to look at poems specifically, okay? Pause. The expectation in this exam is very similar to what you've done for Macbeth and A Christmas Carol. The difference is, though, you will be given in your exam one poem. You'll be asked to compare that to a poem that you remember. So you will not be given 2 poems, but you'll be expected to write about 2 poems. So you'll be given one, like remains, that's on the board, and you'll be asked to compare that to another poem with a certain focus. The focus might be nature, it might be power, it might be conflict, it might be trauma, it might be violence. There could be loads of things it could be. And so you have to analyse the writer's methods, so like language features, structural features, poetic features. You have to discuss the context, what were the writers trying to achieve, and on top of that, you simply have to compare the topic that you've been given in your exam. Okay? Start. So, first thing you need to know about how we approach it at Bristol Hall Academy is that we do poetry bites. You've done this in year 9 and you may have done it in year 8, but you've definitely done it in year 9. So each of the letters of bites stands for something. Let's go through. First one is the beginning. So when you're first given a poem, you need to look at them in a certain order. It's not this order. I've just chosen this because it makes a word. So we'll come back to the order in a minute. But the point is, you talk about the beginning. How does it open? How do you feel at the beginning? What are the topics introduced? Next, imagery. What are the language features that the writer uses, or the structural features that the writer uses to build a clear image in your head? What are the best features and lines in the poem? Next, the title. You need to zoom in on the title. What does it introduce? What are the topics going to be explored? And then you can convey that against the rest of the poem, and does it achieve the purpose set out by the title? Ending. So how does it end? How are we left feeling? Is there a connection between the beginning and the end? And then lastly, structure. How many lines are there in each stanza? Is there any rhyme? Is there any repetition? And what does it suggest? So structure is about how the text is organised. Now, when you come to actually talk about it though, or how you actually annotate, the order you need to do it in is title first because it's at the top, then the beginning because it's next, then the ending to find a link to it, and then the other 2 you can do in any order you want. So I'll say that again. Bites requires you to talk about the beginning, the imagery, the title, the ending, and the structure. Bayonet charge by Ted Hughes. Suddenly he awoke and was running, raw, in raw seamed hot khaki, his sweat heavy, stumbling across a field of clods towards a green hedge that dazzled with rifle fire, hearing bullets smacking the belly out of the air. He lugged a rifle, numb as a smashed arm, the patriotic tear that had brimmed in his eye, sweating like molten iron from the centre of his chest. In bewilderment then, he almost stopped. In what cold clockwork of the stars and the nations was he the hand pointing that second? He was running like a man who had jumped up in the dark and runs but listening between his footfalls for the reason of his still running. And his foot hung like statuary in mid-stride. Then the shot/furrows threw up a yellow hair that rolled like a flame, and crawled in a threshing circle, its mouth wide, open silent, its eyes standing out. He plunged past the bayonet towards the green hedge. King, honour, human dignity, etc. dropped like luxuries in a yelling alarm. To get out of that crackling air, his terrors touchy dynamite. So, this poem takes us through a World War I soldier making the decision of what to drop in order to survive. In the title, we get a bayonet charge. The focus is on the willingness to give up everything to kill your enemy, to charge with your weapon. Okay? It's a very personal attack, and he drives towards a green hedge, so he's got a personal attack against an impersonal enemy. The opening of the poem is a very dramatic opening because suddenly he awoke and was running. The ending and the beginning are linked together because there's both a sense of disorientation. We don't know where we're going with it. It's mysterious. We don't know where this poem is going to take us and where he's going to go afterwards. He is disorientated. Then, when it comes to the imagery in the poem, there's loads of effective language features, particularly similes. One of the metaphors used is the bullets smacking the belly out of the air because they're choking on the smoke given by the guns. The patriotic tear, because once he loved his country, the patriotic tear that had once made him cry, now he's sweating that tear out. He's sweating out the patriotism. The next language feature worth looking at is how nature has been damaged as well. During the battle, a yellow hare has been thrown up out of the ground and is running around in circles because even nature is disorientated. Couple more. King, honour, human dignity, etc. It's almost like the writer is bored with writing positive virtues. He needs to get rid of his king, he needs to get rid of his honour, he needs to get rid of his human dignity in order to survive. These things are a luxury. It's another simile. The poem ends with his terrors touchy dynamite, so we're left feeling this sense of apprehension. We're nervous about where he's going to go because of his decision making. Is he going to kill himself? Is he going to kill the enemy? Is he going to run away? We don't know, and he might explode, so he's described as being dynamite. The last thing I want you to look at and think about is the structure of the poem. This poem is organised in a disorganised way. There's 3 stanzas, but they go 8, 7, 8. There's no rhyme and there's no rhythm to the poem either. There's a sense of like disorientation, not just to the content of the poem, but to the organisation of it as well, suggesting that war is chaotic and disorientated. This poem is Ted Hughes writing a description of how his father felt during war and how, as he was charging across no man's land, he didn't know whether it was worth doing it in the first place, and he lost his patriotism. Cool.